So as we're coming into the new year, I'm getting asked a lot, just talking to people, what's going on with the real estate market? What's happening in the future? What are you predicting for 2023? What do you see happening with prices? So in this video, I'm going to jump into some data and look at some actual numbers of what's going on in the real estate market here in this area. We're going to be looking at the South Jersey Shore area, greater Philadelphia area, into Delaware as well. So what's going on with those markets? And I'm also going to have a special guest here. We'll talk about mortgages, what's going on in the mortgage market, what options are available right now for buyers, and where are rates and where do we see the rates going. So it's going to be a great conversation here. We'll have talking about the mortgage market, talking about the real estate market, recapping a little bit of what happened in 2022, and what do we see happening for 2023. We help people achieve the highest quality of life through buying and selling real estate. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home in New Jersey, Delaware, or Pennsylvania, my team and I would be honored to help. And you can contact us at info@promptagents.com. The information I'm going to use today in this video is directly from our multiple listing service, data that has been compiled through the different market areas that we service. So join me here, let's go in and take a look at some of the data, starting with what's happened in 2022. So in 2022, annual home sales are expected to decline about 19.1% compared to 2021 in our MLS area. Drop in home sales reflects higher mortgage rates, which have eroded buyers' purchasing power and led many prospective buyers to a kind of wait and see approach, waiting to see if rates will come down. So the average rate for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage will be around 6.5% at the end of 2022, and as we're coming into 2023. The high was 7% earlier in the fall. Mortgage rates are expected to drop in 2023, but they're not going to come down as quickly as they rose. So rates probably reach 6% by the end of 2023. Maybe they'll drop lower than that, I don't know. Lower and more predictable mortgage rates will support greater housing demand in 2023, but home sales will be slower in 2023 than they were in 2022. Lower level of inventory of home sales activity in 2023 is being driven by two main factors. One, buyers who would have bought in 2023 purchased earlier to take advantage of the historically low mortgage rates. And two, inventory will still be very low, constraining the sales activity. And that's what we're seeing right now going into the year, is that the inventory is still low, even though the demand is not there. The number of sales, number of buyers interested is dropped. The inventory still remains low. So our forecasters are predicting a 5% drop in home sales in 2023 compared to 2022. So yes, the number of home sales will decrease coming into 2023. The number of homes going under contract has decreased, the number of sales has decreased. But what about home prices? What's going to happen with home prices going into the new year? So over the past 3 years, we've seen home prices rise very quickly in our market. Median price increased by 29% between 2019 and 2022. And the price gain in this region is lower than what many other metro areas experienced during the pandemic. So nationally, the median price rose by 40% over that 3-year period. Because home prices did not run up as quickly, the mid-Atlantic markets are less likely risk of seeing major price declines. While the rates will remain around 6% for much of the year 2023, more buyers will be returning to the market as we move through 2023. However, inventory will stay relatively low as many existing home buyers remain locked into their low rate. So as a result of rebounding demand and still low inventory, home prices in the Mid-Atlantic will be relatively stable. Median home prices are expected to be up 6.1% in 2022 compared to 2023. And this follows 11.1% gain in 2021. So it's expected that home prices will be relatively flat in 2023 in the Mid-Atlantic region, with median prices rising just 0.5%. Okay, so heading into 2023, there will be a lot of variations. I'm just giving you some broad overview of what is expected to happen, but a lot of that does come down to the local market, even a local neighborhood, a local community, and there's a lot of differences. Again, real estate does come down to the local market, so there are some variations. I'm going to go over a few things that are important to know for some of the local areas and things to consider what might happen in the market coming up 2023. So So places where home prices rose much faster than average, a steeper run-up in home prices during the pandemic put the local market at greater risk for a steeper drop in 2023. Coastal or second home markets in 2020 and 2021, there was a significant demand for second and vacation homes, which drove up a lot of buyer activity in those coastal areas and second home markets. As that demand eases, that could put some falling prices in those markets. We'll see. The demand could still maintain for 2023, but it's reasonable to expect that there could be some changes in those markets. Places where household incomes are lower, lower income communities, there will be more demand, downward pressure on home prices as prices in that market need to adjust to reflect local economic conditions. So potentially some of those areas could see some decreases in prices. The other big factor is the inventory. So right now, as I said, coming into the new year, the inventory is still low. If that inventory starts to increase drastically, that is going to affect home prices. Right now, we're not really predicting that that's going to happen, but potentially there could be some markets, some areas, some neighborhoods where that inventory will increase. And if that does happen, that could potentially put prices downward in that particular neighborhood or city or region. We are also seeing the days on market increasing. So if you have a property with those days on market increasing, that can mean that a buyer can negotiate a better price or better terms oftentimes. So that's another factor we want to keep an eye on, is days on the market. Ideally, if you're a home seller, you don't want to keep your house on the market that long. So we do want to be aware of pricing, so you're pricing that home competitively and appropriately if you're a home seller, so that you don't have the home sitting on the market for a long period of time. And price adjustments. We are seeing more price adjustments of home sellers who maybe initially priced their home a little on the high side and now they're making adjustments. And that's something we're probably going to continue to see in 2023. Again, you do want to be aware of your home seller. Try to price the home aggressively so that it's selling quickly and not staying on the market for a long period of time. Stay tuned with me. I'm going to talk to one of my mortgage partners next, and we'll talk about the mortgage rates and the mortgage industry coming up next. Okay, so I'm here with Thom Perkins, one of my mortgage partners with Union Home Mortgage. I really appreciate Thom. He's worked with many of our clients over the years and appreciate his ability to really find out what's important to that client and find a solution that works for them, depending on their scenario and situation. So thank you, Thom, for being with us today. We're talking about mortgages. Yeah. So what are the current rates right now?
So interest rates obviously have been a challenge for us over the last year, and we've experienced a lot more volatility over this past year than we've previously been used to. Rates kind of ticked up even closer to like 7% at one point, and kind of simmered back down into the low 6 range. But anytime we talk about mortgage rates, it's always a loaded question because there's so many variables that factor into one's rates, such as the credit score, the loan amount, the type of loan they're getting, the down payment. So there's a lot of variables, but in general, 30-year is going to be in the lower 6s as of January 5th, 2023. So we don't know what January 6th will bring, because again it's been pretty volatile. But all things considered, a low 6% is not a bad interest rate.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, if you look at a historical perspective and we said what would the average interest rate be over, like, say, a 40-year period over the last 40 years, what would that look like?
Yeah, so if we look back, let's say into the 80s, from 1980, of course, I was a kid, so I don't remember that, and obviously neither of us were in the business or had anything to do with home buying or mortgages at that point. But the rates were in the mid-teens in the 80s, which is kind of mind-blowing for us. So when you look back at maybe the early 80s, 15-16%. So again, that really gives you some perspective. They did come down from there, but in the 90s, probably maybe in the 7s, and even in the 2000s, we're like in the 6% range. So I think one of the challenges for us in our industry right now and for home buyers is that we've come off of a particularly abnormally low rate environment, as the Fed has done what they felt they needed to do to keep interest rates abnormally low in the past to stimulate the economy, and as they began to kind of creep back up as they should have, then the onset of COVID and the Fed brought the rates back down, and the market has adjusted things accordingly. So we've been coming off of a really unusually low rate environment where you're, a 30-year fixed rate in the threes, which is ridiculous. So I think to come back to this, to the sixes is a much more normal rate. It's probably really where things should be, but it is difficult to digest. It's a little bit disorienting for buyers who got used to interest rates in the threes. So I think we really have to keep that in perspective. If you're coming from the 80s and the teens and looking at a 6% rate, 6% rate now, that's really probably where we should be.
Yeah, I think you're right. You got to put it in perspective, and I think a big part of what we do is to educate consumers on what's going on, because if you put it in perspective, it's really not that bad rate. Just jumping from 3 to 6 is a big jump. However, if you look at it in the totality, historical perspective, it's really not that bad. Could be worse. So we'll take it. Now let's talk about how can buyers right now lower their monthly payment, or maybe get credits back to help with their closing costs, or what types of options are you seeing and buyers doing right now?
So we have the opportunity for buyers to do what's called a temporary buy down. And what that does is if we're able to get a credit from the seller, they can use that credit to pay for what's called a temporary buy down. And what that does in this scenario, let's say for the first year, instead of the buyer paying 6% interest, their interest rate would be 4%. So their payment would be based on a 4% interest rate instead of a 6% interest rate. The second year would go up to 5%. And then by the third year, it would go back up to the set rate. The advantage of that is twofold. Number one, it gives the buyer the ability to get into the home and adjust to that new living expenses, starting with a lower payment, and then they can kind of gradually ease up to a higher fixed rate. But the other thing that it does as well is our hope, and of course I cannot guarantee this, but our hope and the forecast is that interest rates will indeed come back down in the next year or two. And this will give people the ability to keep their rate down and their payment down until the interest rates come back down and they're able to refinance their loan. So that's a really good option for buyers right now. You always have the opportunity to pay pay points to buy down the rate as well to get a lower payment. So again, Matt, as you mentioned, our goal is always to look at what's best for the buyer. How can we help the buyer achieve their goals and accomplish what they're trying to accomplish? I think one thing that I would say along these lines in terms of timing, I think for some buyers it seems uncertain right now. I think some people think, well, the interest rates may be too high for me to buy right now, and maybe I'm going to wait. But as I see the market, I think that this is actually a really ideal time to buy, because in terms of interest rates follow inflation. So as inflation will come down again in the next year or two, the interest rates will come down and buyers follow interest rates. So what's going to happen is that as the interest rates come down, there's going to be more buyers in the market, which only drives up home prices. So I believe that we're still in a seller's market. There's still a lack of inventory, even now in this slightly higher interest rate environment. So once the rates come back down and more buyers come into the market, it's only going to drive prices higher. So it would seem to me that this is a really ideal time to buy while the values are still where they're at. Uh, and then again, be able to refinance later. But if people wait to buy, there's nothing you can do about the home values.
Right, right. You're right. I think it is a great opportunity right now. And I think it is more of a buyer's market right now. But you're right. If the rates go back down, more buyers come back in the market and say, "Oh, now we're ready to buy now." But then you have more competition, and you go back in that
Correct.
same scenario where okay, now there's bidding wars, and the prices are going increasing, and so it's
Exactly.
definitely a great opportunity right now. And yeah, and I think we're at that point where buyers can negotiate with the seller terms. They can negotiate to get repairs done, or hey, give us points to go towards our buying down the mortgage, or doing the buy down for the first year or two. So there's definitely some things that we can negotiate right now, which 6 months ago, no, there would be no chance we would even be able to do that at all.
Right,
Um,
exactly. And
yeah.
likely again, when the interest rates come down, we'll be in a situation where you may not have that leverage again as a buyer.
Hmm. Let me ask you, someone that's renting right now, is it still make sense to buy a home compared to renting?
It's a really good question, and I think that that is the question that is on the minds of a lot of first-time home buyers at this point, because again, they see the volatility and the seeming uncertainty and wonder, well, should I wait? Um, but a scenario that I use is, let's say that a renter is going to pay $2,500 a month for maybe a three-bedroom home, which is probably you think that's probably um, about an average cost to rent at this point.
Yeah.
And so a renter is paying $2,500 a month to a landlord, and of course we know that they're not going to see that money again. But considering what it looks like to wait, and for that renter, if they waited, let's say they wait 10 years, and they're paying, even if their rent didn't go up, they're paying $2,500 a month for the next 10 years. Over that 10-year period, they will have spent about $300,000 on rent. So they would have given the landlord $300,000 over that 10-year period, versus if they were uh, to buy, let's say, a $300,000 home now, their monthly payment, depending on the property taxes, would probably be in the range of about $2,500. And after 10 years, let's say, typically home values increase by 3 to 4% a year, probably on average. So over a 10-year period, if that same buyer had purchased a home for 300,000, and let's say they put like 5% down, after 10 years they would have something like, I think, maybe $180,000 in equity on that property. So the same $2,500 a month, they can either lose out on $300,000 giving that to a landlord, or they could own a home, pay virtually the same amount, and have a pretty significant equity position after 10 years. So I think when you compare it like that, if someone is able to qualify, that it would be a no-brainer for them to buy instead of rent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the only reason I tell people to rent, and there's nothing wrong with renting if anybody's renting, if you're only going to be in the area for a short term, I definitely recommend go ahead and rent. You're only going to be here 3 years or something along those lines
Sure,
in
sure.
the area, just rent. Don't buy. But if you're going to be here long term, definitely a good your investment is it's worthwhile to buy versus rent. The other reason that sometimes I would recommend people to rent is if you're relocating to a new area, you don't know anything, you don't know the areas, location. Sometimes
Yeah,
a good idea just rent for a year,
sure.
get familiar with the area, get
Get a
familiar with the
feel for
location,
it.
get a
Yeah.
feel for it. Unless you absolutely know, oh, yeah, this is where I want to be. But sometimes people don't necessarily know that. But otherwise,
Right.
right, buy instead of rent. Yes, definitely a good policy. How about first time home buyers? Are there any programs, incentives, anything out there for first-time home buyers right now?
Sure, there's a few things. There is a program through the state that we've been using that allows a buyer to uh, the state provides $10,000 for a first-time home buyer to for their down payment and closing costs. And that program is actually a little more attractive now than it would have been a year ago because the rate on that program is set by the state and it's actually lower than a typical 30-year interest rate. So again, as of today, it is 5 5/8 on a 30-year fixed on that program. The buyer gets 10,000 towards down payment and closing costs. So that can definitely help a first-time home buyer. The technical definition of a first-time home buyer for virtually any first-time home buyer program is that they have not owned a home in the last 3 years. So even if someone owned a home previously, sold it, but they haven't owned anything in the last 3 years, they may qualify for that type of program. So that's one program that we're doing through the state. I think we do have a pretty good opportunity in this region here of South Jersey, where a lot of our buyers are utilizing a program through the USDA that allows a zero down payment. And that's a great opportunity for much of our area here is eligible for that. And so the terms of this program are pretty attractive. And again, when you have a zero down payment, that can really help someone who's a first-time home buyer. That program in particular does not require that the buyer be a first-time home buyer, but it would need to be their primary residence, and they can't own any other real estate. So in other words, if they're selling another home and buying a different home, as long as they qualify in terms of the income restrictions, they could be eligible for that zero down program. So that's a great opportunity. One more thing to mention is for buyers that are looking either live in Atlantic City or work in Atlantic City, there are some pretty good down payment assistance programs through Atlantic City right now. The amounts vary based on the program. There's actually 3 different programs. I participate in all of them. But typically it's around the average buyer's getting around $20,000 to buy in Atlantic City. So the stipulations in general are that they either need to already have lived in Atlantic City for the last 12 months or work in Atlantic City for the last 12 months. And so that's a very attractive program as well.
Thom, thank you so much. I really appreciate your insight and giving us the update on the mortgage market right now. I'm going to include the link for Thom's information in the notes here, so you can reach out to him if you have any mortgage related questions, and he'd be glad to help. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to share with you today. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks. So thanks for watching this mortgage and market update. My intention this year is to update you once a month and do a monthly real estate market and mortgage update for you. So I hope this information has been valuable for you. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. What do you think is going to happen coming into the new year? Let me know, and love to get your feedback on that. And I did a video about Dave Ramsey and what his predictions were for the real estate market coming into the new year. So definitely want to check that video out right here and take a look and see what Dave Ramsey has to say about the real estate market, and do we agree with what he has to say?